I am Diane Whitmore. I am a mother, a grandmother, and for 2 weeks I was no one. When my son Carlton died, I thought the world would stop. But it didn't. It moved on. Faster than I could follow. Faster than I could grieve. And the person who moved fastest was his wife, Celia. 3 days after the funeral, I was still sitting in his old armchair, his silt still lingering on the fabric, my hands trembling as I folded the cardigan he wore every Sunday. I was whispering his name into the soft wool like it could hold him together. That's when Celia walked in. Designer jeans, flawless makeup, a silk blouse that probably cost more than my last month's groceries. She didn't sit down. She didn't ask how I was. She stood, looming above me like a landlord looking at a tenant she was about to evict. "Don't be dramatic, Diane," she said. "Pack your bags and learn to survive." I didn't cry in front of her. I waited until she left the room. Then I collapsed over Carlton's cardigan like it was the last thread holding me to the earth. That house, our house, had been my home for 5 years. Carlton and I agreed when their first child was born, Emma, that I would sell my apartment and move in to help with the children. I'd been there for every cold, every soccer game, every birthday cake I baked from scratch, but to Celia I was just clutter, emotional noise, a wrinkle in her clean, curated life. That night, I packed my things. 2 suitcases, 1 duffel bag. That's all it took to undo 5 years of my life, most of what I'd once owned. I'd already given away or absorbed into their household. I kept a framed photo of Carlton with the kids on Christmas morning, a few dresses, and his gray cardigan. I left a note for Emma and Lucas, my grandchildren. Just 2 lines. "Grandma loves you very much." I had to go away for a little while. I taped it to their bathroom mirror and prayed they would read it before Celia took it down. I spent my first night in the back seat of my car, behind a 24-hour laundromat. I wasn't sure if I was more afraid of being seen or of being forgotten. I used the restroom at dawn. I washed my face with hand soap. I drank coffee slowly at a diner until I felt like a person again. And then I drove past the house. Celia was outside, laughing on the phone, overseeing a dumpster in the driveway. Carlton's reading chair was the first thing they threw in. The same chair where he held Emma through fevers, where he read bedtime stories, where we sat side by side in his final months while I rubbed lotion on his arms, because even blankets hurt him at the end. They tossed it like it was nothing. I drove away with my hands shaking so badly I had to pull into a parking lot and just breathe. That was the moment I realized I hadn't just lost my son. I had lost my place in the world. Then came the phone call. I was sitting in my car, eating crackers and peanut butter from the trunk when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Mrs. Whitmore," a man asked. "This is Daniel Granger. I'm your son Carlton's estate attorney. I believe it's time you came in. There are some matters we need to discuss. Urgent ones. Carlton left something for you," he added. I sat there frozen as the words echoed inside me. Carlton hadn't forgotten me. Even at the end. Even as he lay dying, my son had protected me. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was uncomfortable. Though sleeping in the front seat of a hatchback with a broken recline mechanism isn't exactly a 5-star experience. I didn't sleep because for the first time in 2 weeks, someone had said my name like it mattered. "Carlton left something for you." That sentence played on repeat in my head like a hymn. What could it be? A final letter? A memory box? Or was it something legal? Something that could challenge what Celia had done? Whatever it was, it pulled me out of my fog. I arrived at the attorney's office 15 minutes early, wearing the cleanest outfit I had and a scarf to hide the thinning hair I hadn't washed in days. The receptionist didn't look twice at me, which I appreciated. Invisibility had become a kind of shield. Mr. Daniel Granger stepped out a few minutes later. Mid-50s, gray hair, steady voice. He extended his hand with a kind smile. "I'm so sorry for your loss, Mrs. Whitmore. Carlton spoke very highly of you." That was all it took. I nearly burst into tears. His office smelled like polished wood and fresh printer ink. I held the warm mug of coffee he gave me like it was a lifeline. Your son met with me several months before he passed, Mr. Granger said, opening a leather folder. He had concerns, serious ones, about what might happen after his death. I didn't speak, I just waited. He suspected that Celia would push you out. He was worried she would prioritize her new life over the children's grief and over you. I nodded slowly, my chest tightening. He was right. I whispered. Granger adjusted his glasses. Carlton made several amendments to his estate plan, changes that were confidential and not disclosed to Celia. He slid a printed page across the desk. To my mother, Diane Whitmore. I leave full guardianship of my children in the event that my wife attempts to sever her relationship with them or remove her from their lives. I also leave to her the sum of $4.2 million, held in trust for her exclusive use in raising and protecting them. I couldn't breathe. My eyes scanned the words again and again, as if they'd rearrange into something less impossible. Less, just, I don't understand, I finally said. Celia told me she owned everything. She does own the house, he replied. But your son's financial portfolio was far larger than she knew. He had separate investment accounts, retirement funds, and a private life insurance policy he purchased just weeks after his diagnosis. I blinked at him. You mean? He planned this, planned everything. He nodded solemnly. Carlton didn't trust that Celia would put family above convenience. And frankly, he was right to be concerned. He opened another folder. We have text logs, voice recordings, statements from his therapist. Carlton documented every red flag in detail. My hands trembled. All this time I thought I had lost everything, but my son had been building a safety net around me, silently. Even when he was dying, Mrs. Whitmore, Mr. Granger said gently, I know this is a lot, but we need to act quickly. On what? I asked, dazed. Celia has no idea that you're about to file for full legal custody of Emma and Lucas. And once she finds out, she's going to fight. I sat up straighter. For the first time in weeks, my back didn't ache from shame. Let her, I said. Let her fight. That evening, I didn't sleep in my car, Mr. Granger's office arranged for a hotel room and a hot meal. It felt foreign, like trying on someone else's life. But as I sat on clean sheets, holding the legal paperwork that named me the guardian of my grandchildren, I whispered something into the silence. I'm still your mother, Carlton. And now, I'm going to be theirs. The doorbell echoed through the house like a judgment. I stood on the porch of what had once been my home, holding a manila folder of legal documents and surrounded by silence that stretched like a battlefield before the war cry. Behind me, Mr. Granger stood calmly, briefcase in hand. To his left, a young woman from Child Services, clipboard tucked to her chest, tried not to look nervous. And to her left, the officer, Officer Reese, watched the door with unreadable eyes. It was time. Celia opened the door. Her expression shifted in an instant, from irritation to confusion to thinly veiled panic. Deanne? She blinked. What is this? Why are you here with? She gestured vaguely to the group behind me, her voice trembling in the space between guilt and fear. I didn't flinch. May we come in? She hesitated, then stepped back. Her silence was permission enough. The house was colder than I remembered. White leather, chrome accents, no photos, no toys, not a single trace of Carlton. Even the scent had changed. Bleach and lavender instead of wood polish and coffee. This wasn't a home anymore. It was a showroom. Celia sat on the edge of the pristine sofa, legs crossed, arms tense. She wouldn't meet my eyes. What is this about? She finally asked. If this is some kind of stunt. Diane, Mr. Granger calmly opened his briefcase and placed a document in front of her. This is a copy of your husband's revised will, he said. You'll see that in the event of any attempt to sever his mother's relationship with the children, full custody is transferred to Mrs. Whitmore. Celia laughed. Short, bitter, disbelieving. That's ridiculous. He never told me that. I'm their mother. He didn't trust you, I said. My voice was quiet but hard. And now I understand why. She stood. This is outrageous. Carlton never mentioned any of this. You're lying. You're trying to take what's mine. No, I cut in. I'm taking back what you threw away. The room went silent. The social worker stepped forward. Mrs. Peterson, we have reason to believe that the emotional environment here has not supported the children's grief process. There are documented concerns from Mr. Whitmore, including recordings, her voice cracked. Mr. Granger hit play on a small device. Carlton's voice filled the room. If anything happens to me, Mom should stay with the kids. Celia, she sees grief as weakness. She's already talking about redecorating before I'm even gone. She said she's going to pack up my things, sell the house if she wants, and ship Mom out. Like she's garbage. I watched Celia's face as her own words came back to haunt her. She slumped into the sofa, trembling. You don't understand, she whispered. I just wanted to move on. At their expense, I said, stepping forward now. At the expense of their memories, their safety. You threw away his desk, his letters, his photos. You erased their father and tried to erase me. Tears welled in her eyes, but they didn't change the truth. You made me homeless, I said, but you didn't make me powerless. The transfer was swift, custody papers signed, visitation schedule defined. And me, standing in the center of the storm with my son's voice still echoing in my ears. I wasn't just a mother anymore. I was a grandmother with authority. And I had come home. The school bell rang at 3:15 p.m. I stood behind the chain link fence with a clipboard clutched to my chest, not because I needed to fill anything out, but because I didn't know what else to do with my hands. It had been 17 days since I'd seen Emma and Lucas. 17 days since I'd left that folded letter taped to their mirror. 17 days of silence, of wondering if they'd felt abandoned, if they'd been told lies. And now, I was here, not as their grandmother who baked cookies or helped with homework, but as their new guardian, their protector, their safe place. Emma was the first to see me. She stepped out of the classroom, her backpack bouncing against her legs. She stopped dead in her tracks when her eyes met mine, blinking hard, like I might dissolve if she looked too closely. Grandma, she whispered. I knelt. My hands trembled, but my voice didn't. I'm here, sweetheart, I said. I'm real, and I'm here to take you home. Tears welled in her eyes. But Mommy said you left because you didn't want to live with us anymore. My chest cracked wide open. I pulled her close, hugging her tightly as her little fingers gripped the collar of my coat. No, I said softly. I never wanted to leave you. I love you more than anything. Lucas appeared seconds later, taller, more guarded. 10 years old, trying so hard to be a little man. He stopped just a few feet away, staring at me like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve. Mom said you were mad at us, he said quietly. That's why you left. I looked him in the eye. Lucas, I said, my voice low and steady. I was never mad at you. I was hurting, and I left because I thought I didn't have a choice. But I was wrong. He didn't cry. But his lip trembled before he muttered, okay. And then he stepped forward, just enough to let me put a hand on his shoulder. We didn't go back to that house. We went to the apartment Mr. Granger's office had arranged. It was small but clean, warm, quiet, a safe place to start over. Inside, I showed them their rooms. Emma's had a soft pink bedspread and the butterfly nightlight I'd managed to rescue from the storage bins Celia had tossed aside. Lucas's had a twin bed with navy blue sheets and a desk already stocked with pencils and books. They didn't say much. Just walked slowly around the space like explorers mapping unfamiliar land. It's not as big as your rooms before, I said, but it's yours. And it's safe. Lucas ran a hand across the bookshelf. Emma opened the nightstand drawer and found a framed photo of her with Carlton. You kept this, she whispered. I kept everything I could, I said. I promise. That night, we ate pizza on the floor of our tiny living room. No rules, no napkins, just cheese, crumbs, and freedom. I told them stories about Carlton, stories Celia never let me tell. Like the time he filled his sneakers with dirt because he thought it would help him grow taller overnight. They laughed, really laughed. Lucas rolled onto his side, holding his stomach. Emma had pizza sauce on her cheek and didn't even care. For the first time since Carlton's funeral, the air didn't feel heavy. Before bed, Emma asked, "Can I cry sometimes about Daddy?" I pulled her into my lap. "You can cry whenever you want," I said. "You can laugh, you can talk, you can even be angry. That's what love does. It makes room for all of that." Lucas was listening from the doorway. He didn't say anything, but I saw it in his eyes: relief. Permission. Home. Later that night, after they were asleep, I sat alone in the kitchen with a cup of tea and whispered into the dark, "Carlton, they're safe. I've got them now, and I'll never let them go again." Children don't always grieve with words. They grieve in silence. In how they make their beds. In how quickly they clean up a spill. In how they stop asking for bedtime stories without saying why. And that's how I knew Emma and Lucas were still drowning. Not in tears, but in the quiet expectation Celia had trained into them. The first morning in the new apartment, I made pancakes. Carlton's recipe. The one he used every Sunday. Extra vanilla, too much cinnamon, no apologies. The kitchen smelled like childhood. Lucas came in first. He was already dressed. Backpack slung over one shoulder, even though it was Saturday. "You don't have school today?" I reminded him gently. He nodded. "I know. I just didn't want to forget." He sat at the table without taking off the bag. Emma followed. She looked at the mess on the counter. Flour on the floor, batter dripping from a ladle, and immediately grabbed a paper towel. "Oh no, you don't," I said, catching her hand. "It's okay. We're making a mess today. That's what kitchens are for." She looked at me like I was speaking another language. They were quiet during breakfast. Too quiet. Lucas asked if I had a homework station. Emma wanted to know what time chores started. I realized then just how rigid their lives had become. How grief had been replaced by structure, and sadness punished by silence. "Kids," I said gently. "There are no rules here except one: you get to be kids again." Emma looked unsure. Lucas didn't react. But when I poured more syrup onto their plates and didn't scold them, I saw something shift. Just a little. But it was a beginning. Over the next week, the signs kept coming. Emma folded her pajamas every morning and lined up her shoes next to the wall like little soldiers. Lucas cleaned the bathroom without being asked and apologized when he forgot to flush. They flinched when I raised my voice to call them for dinner. They checked the fridge every night like they weren't sure food would still be there. But the worst moment came 3 days in, when I found Emma sitting on the floor of the closet with her knees pulled to her chest. She wasn't crying. Just frozen. "What's going on, sweetheart?" I asked, kneeling beside her. She didn't look up. "Mom said, if we made too much noise or got too messy, we might have to move again. She said happy kids don't cry." I pulled her into my arms, her little body stiff and cold. "You don't ever have to be quiet for my sake," I whispered. "And you can cry. You can scream, you can be messy, silly, loud, or scared. You're safe now, I promise." That night, we sat on the living room floor with blankets and a bowl of popcorn and watched Carlton's favorite childhood movie. Not because it was good. It was terrible. But because the kids laughed. Real, loud, ugly snort laughter. And it was the most beautiful sound I'd heard since the funeral. Emma fell asleep with her head in my lap. Lucas leaned against my shoulder, and I cried without shame as the credits rolled. Not for the pain we'd been through, but for the small, quiet miracle of having made it through it all. It had been 3 weeks since I brought Emma and Lucas home. 3 weeks of slow healing, of quiet dinners, of laughter returning in cautious little bursts like spring after a long, cruel winter. I was folding laundry one afternoon when the doorbell rang. It wasn't the pizza guy. It wasn't the mailman. It was her. Celia. She stood on my front step holding a small gift bag. No heels. No makeup, just jeans, a cardigan, and a face I barely recognized. "Hi, Diane," she said. Her voice was quiet. "Careful. I was hoping I could see the kids for a few minutes. I didn't open the door fully. Not yet." "It's not your visitation day," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I know," she said. I brought Emma something for her birthday next week. I thought maybe we could talk." I studied her face. Not the curated face I used to know, polished, perfect, deflective. This was a woman who'd lost something real. Not just control, but connection. I stepped aside. 15 minutes, I said. "And you sit with me first." She followed me into the living room. Emma's rock collection was spread across the coffee table. Lucas's math book was still open beside a juice-stained napkin. The air smelled like cinnamon from a candle the kids had insisted on lighting. None of it matched the world Celia had curated before, but all of it felt alive. She took it in, slowly. "They look happy," she said. Her voice cracked on the word, happy. "They're healing," I said, "because they're allowed to feel things now, even the messy things." She nodded, eyes shining. "I wanted to say I'm sorry, Diane, for everything, for the way I treated you, for the way I erased him, and you. I thought if I could clean up fast enough, decorate hard enough, I could outrun the grief." "You didn't outrun it," I said gently. "You passed it on." Tears finally fell from her eyes. "I didn't know how to love them through the pain," she whispered. "But I see that you do." Emma came downstairs, barefoot and curious. When she saw Celia, she froze. Celia didn't move toward her. She just held out the gift bag. "It's for you," she said. "I thought you might want a locket with Daddy's picture inside." Emma glanced at me. I nodded. She took the bag carefully and pulled out the small silver locket. Inside was a photo of Carlton, smiling, holding both kids in his arms. Emma's fingers trembled. "Do you want help putting it on?" Celia asked. Emma hesitated, then turned around, and for a brief, trembling moment, Celia fastened the chain around her daughter's neck with fingers that didn't shake. When she left, she turned to me at the door. "I'd like to take them for ice cream next week. Just the three of us, if you'll allow it." I looked her in the eye. "Supervised. 1 hour. You call me when you pick them up and drop them off." Her face crumpled with gratitude. "Thank you." That night, Lucas looked up from his drawing and asked, "Do you think Mom is getting better?" I paused. "She's trying," I said. "What do you think?" He thought about it for a long time. She seemed sadder, but nicer, and that, I realized, was the first step. The first supervised visit happened on a Thursday afternoon. 1 hour, at the frozen yogurt shop near the elementary school. Neutral territory. Celia arrived early. She was dressed simply. Jeans, sneakers, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked younger and older at the same time, like someone starting over without a map. Emma and Lucas were nervous. You could see it in the way Lucas wouldn't let go of my hand at the entrance, and how Emma kept twisting the locket at her throat. "You'll be right outside?" Emma asked. "Right outside," I said, "and you can come back to me anytime." They nodded, but neither smiled. I watched from the car as Celia held the door open, let them walk in first, and then followed, slow, uncertain. She didn't try to hug them, didn't try to take over. That alone told me she was beginning to understand what had been broken. 57 minutes later, the door opened. Lucas came out first, holding a half-melted cup of mango yogurt. Emma followed, clutching a new paper napkin she'd folded into a flower. Celia stepped out behind them, eyes already searching for mine. "They're okay," I said before she could speak. She nodded. "Thank you for trusting me." "Don't thank me yet. This is one visit, one step. I know." But we kept it slow. Supervised afternoons at the park, library trips, painting pottery at that overpriced art cafe downtown. At first, Celia talked too much, tried too hard, bought things instead of listening. But one day, something changed. We were at the community garden. Emma had just spilled a watering can over her shoes, and Lucas was trying to dig a hole for a tomato plant with a broken plastic spoon. Celia knelt beside them, no makeup, dirt on her jeans. And when Lucas snapped, "You're doing it wrong," she didn't scold. She said, "Maybe I am. Show me the right way." He did, silently, handing her the spoon. She didn't break the moment with a lecture. She just followed his lead, and I saw it, the moment they saw her again. Not the woman who told them to be quiet. Not the stranger who packed up their father's memories, but someone who might be learning to listen. That night, as I tucked Emma in, she whispered, "Grandma, do you think Mommy misses Daddy now?" I brushed the hair from her forehead. I think she always missed him, but she didn't know how to show it. Emma nodded. She was so busy being okay, she forgot how to be sad. Out of the mouths of children. Later, I found Lucas sitting at the kitchen table drawing. He pushed the paper toward me. It was a picture of all of us. Him, Emma, me, and Celia. Stick figures holding hands. "We're not fixed yet," he said, chewing on his pencil. "But we're trying." I pulled him into a hug, holding him tight. "We don't need to be fixed," I whispered. "We just need to keep trying." It was almost midnight when I opened the drawer. The apartment was still. Emma and Lucas were asleep. The hallway light buzzed softly. But the rest of the world had gone quiet. I sat at the edge of my bed and placed the letter on my lap. The one Carlton had left for me. The one I hadn't dared read again. Not since the day Mr. Granger first handed it to me with trembling hands and tired eyes. That day, I was too broken to take it all in. But now I was ready. I unfolded the thick cream-colored paper. Carlton's handwriting was familiar, sharp, neat, with that slight leftward tilt he'd had since middle school. "Mom, if you're reading this, then I'm already gone. I hope they let you grieve. I hope they let you stay. But if they didn't, if she didn't, then I need you to know one thing. You were never a burden. You were the only constant I had when the world stopped making sense. I don't know what Celia will do after I'm gone. I don't know how much of me she'll hold on to, or how much of you. But I know one thing: my children need you. Not for the cooking, not for the babysitting, but for who you are. You don't demand perfection. You let people be messy. You let them feel. And when I think about what kind of parent I hope Emma and Lucas will remember, it's not me. It's you." I stopped there, already wiping my eyes. I had spent years thinking that motherhood ended when your child no longer needed you. That once Carlton was grown, my job was to step aside. But reading his words, I realized something I had never put into words before: love doesn't step aside. Love steps in, especially when it's hardest. Carlton's letter ended with this: "Thank you for everything you gave up, Mom. Now it's your turn to live. But don't just survive. Live like you're still raising me. Show them what real love looks like. Tell them stories. Let them make messes. Let them cry. Be the heart of this family, because you always were." I folded the letter slowly and placed it back in the drawer. But the words, they stayed. Not on the paper, in me. Carlton had given me money, yes, a trust, a house, custody of his children. But more than all that, he had given me a final role, not as a helper, not as a guest, but as the beating heart of a healing home. That night, I didn't cry out of grief. I cried out of purpose. It was a Tuesday afternoon. The rain had started around 3 and never really stopped. The kind of soft drizzle that made everything feel like it had a hush over it. Emma was sitting at the kitchen table with her coloring book, half focused, half drifting. Lucas was in the living room, headphones on, building something with blocks he insisted weren't toys because they're engineering tools. I was chopping apples for a crumble. Without looking up, Emma asked, "Grandma, was Daddy scared?" I didn't ask what she meant. I knew. I put down the knife. She was still staring at the page in front of her, filling in the wings of a butterfly with uneven strokes of blue. Her voice was casual, like she was asking whether butterflies sleep. Was he scared when he knew he was going to die? I sat down beside her. That's a brave question, I said. She nodded, still coloring. I think about him, and I wonder if he cried, or if he was trying to be brave for us. I swallowed. Emma, I said softly, I did cry. She looked up. Your daddy was scared, yes. He was sad. He hated knowing he wouldn't get to see you grow up. He hated the idea of missing your birthdays, your dances, your first day of high school. Did he cry in front of Mommy? No, I said. Not really. He cried with me, at night. When the house was quiet. She blinked hard, eyes glassy. Why didn't he tell me? Because he didn't want you to be scared, too. He wanted you to keep believing the world was okay for as long as possible. She pressed her fingers into the page, crumpling the paper a little. That's not fair, she whispered. No, I agreed. It's not. I reached over and traced her tiny hand with my finger. But being scared doesn't mean you're weak, I told her. And it doesn't mean he gave up. He fought for every extra day with you. Even when he was tired. Even when it hurt. Did he know I loved him? I couldn't stop the tear that slipped from my eye. He knew, sweetheart. Every moment. You were his whole heart. Emma slid the coloring book away and crawled into my lap like she was 6 again instead of 9. Sometimes I think about what I would say to him if he could hear me, she said, voice muffled against my shoulder. What would you say? I'd say I'm sorry I didn't hug him harder, and I miss the way he laughed. And I'm trying to be really brave, but it's hard. I wrapped both arms around her and rocked her gently. You just told him, I whispered. Lucas came in a few minutes later, quietly setting a blanket over us both without a word, then curling up beside us on the floor. We stayed like that for a long time. No screens, no music, just the sound of rain and breath, and one family holding space for each other's pain. Grief, I've learned, doesn't always need a solution. Sometimes, it just needs a place to be allowed. That afternoon, we didn't fix anything, but we made room for the ache. And sometimes, that's more powerful than fixing. 6 months. That's how long it had been since Carlton left this world. It still didn't feel real. Not all the time. Some mornings, I'd catch myself turning to tell him something. A funny moment with the kids, a memory he would have laughed at. And then I'd remember, he was gone. And somehow, we were still here. Alive, healing. Laughing again. And today we were going to remember him out loud. I asked the kids how they wanted to honor him. Not a memorial with guests or formal clothes. No flowers. No speeches. Just the 3 of us. Lucas said, let's cook his favorite dinner. Emma said, let's build something. Like we're making something with him. And me. I just wanted to hear his voice in the way they smiled. We started in the kitchen. Carlton loved spicy chili and sour cornbread with way too much honey on top. Lucas chopped onions with exaggerated drama, wiping his eyes and yelling, Dad, why would you do this to me? Emma stirred the pot and accidentally spilled cumin all over the counter. They both froze, waiting for me to scold them. Instead, I laughed. Well, if your dad were here, he'd say cumin is basically glitter. It gets everywhere and it's always too much. They cracked up, full on belly laughter. There he was. After dinner, we pulled out craft paper and tape. Emma built a memory wall on the hallway outside their bedrooms. She drew stars and hearts, wrote messages to Carlton in pink marker. Lucas printed out photos. Carlton in his baseball cap, Carlton holding newborn Emma, Carlton making pancakes in his bathrobe. They hung it all up like art, like worship. And when it was done, we sat in front of it on the floor, in our pajamas, eating ice cream straight from the tub. No one said much for a while. Then Lucas spoke. I used to be mad at him for leaving. His voice was low. But now, I think he stayed in the ways that matter. I didn't answer. I just reached for his hand and squeezed. Emma whispered, he's in our house now. In the way we laugh, the way we eat chili, the way Grandma lets us stay up late on Saturdays. I pressed my forehead to hers. Exactly. That night, I tucked them in with soft music playing and the smell of cinnamon still lingering in the kitchen. As I stood in the hallway, staring at the wall they'd made, chaotic, colorful, alive, I realized something. We didn't build a memorial today. We built a bridge. From what we lost, to what we still carry, to what we're becoming. Carlton wasn't a ghost in this home. He was a presence. He was the silence we respected when someone needed to cry, the burst of laughter when someone said something goofy, the chilly stain on the counter, the stories we retold, even when they made us cry a little. He wasn't in a grave, he was in us. It happened on a Tuesday. Emma and Lucas were both at school. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. I'd just finished folding laundry when I realized I had nothing else to do. No court forms. No doctor's appointments. No emergency to fix. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I heard its silence. Not the kind that wraps around grief. The kind that asks something of you. The kind that says, okay, you saved everyone. Now, what about you? I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the steam rising from my tea. Who was I now that the crisis had passed? For months, my identity had been fighter, then guardian, then healer. But what happens when you've held everyone else together, and now the quiet is holding you? The last time I'd had a day truly to myself was before Carlton's diagnosis. Back when I used to go to the library just to read for pleasure. Back when I'd stop by that little thrift shop for cookbooks and old vinyl records. Back when I had small dreams, like finishing a memoir, or finally learning how to use that ridiculous pottery wheel collecting dust in the garage. I used to write. Did I even remember how? That afternoon, I opened an empty Word document and stared at the blinking cursor. For a long time, nothing came. Then I typed, the day I packed my life into 2 suitcases. I thought I had lost everything. I was wrong. I kept writing, not fast, not polished, but honest. I wrote about grief, about being discarded, about crawling back, not for revenge, but for love, about learning that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, try again. The next day, I signed up for a free writing group at the library. The woman running it, a retired journalist named Carol with red lipstick on her teeth and kindness in her eyes, clapped when I said my name. I'm Diane, I said. I'm here because I forgot who I was. But I'd like to remember. That night, after homework and dishes, Emma sat on my lap with her reading book. You're smiling, she said, looking up. Am I? Yeah. But not just with your mouth. Your eyes, too. I kissed her forehead. That's because I remembered something today. What? That I'm more than someone who lost things. I'm someone who still gets to live. The text came on a Thursday morning. Celia, would you have lunch with me, just us? No kids, no paperwork, just lunch. I stared at it for a long time. The last time Celia and I had been alone in a room together, she was asking me to pack my bags. That version of me, the woman who nodded in silence and folded sweaters through tears, no longer existed. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. But I wasn't sure if I was ready. Still, I replied me yes. 1 hour neutral ground. I'm choosing the place. We met at a small cafe near the edge of town. The kind with chipped mugs and mismatched chairs. Where nothing was curated, and that was the charm. Celia was already there when I walked in, nursing a glass of iced tea like it might break in her hands. She stood when she saw me, then sat again too fast, like she wasn't sure what she was allowed to do. I sat across from her, no hugs, no smile, but no walls either, just space. I didn't ask you here to apologize again, she said after a while. Her voice was quieter now, less brittle. I asked because I realized I don't know anything about you. Not really. I raised an eyebrow. I lived in your house for 5 years, Celia. She nodded. You existed in my house. But I never really saw you. She took a breath. It trembled on the way out. I saw a mother-in-law, a grandmother, a woman who folded laundry and made dinner and stood in the background. But I never asked what your favorite book was, or what music you liked, or who you were before you became Carlton's mom. I studied her for a moment. And what made you want to ask now? Her eyes filled, not performatively, but quietly. Because I lost my husband. Then I lost my children. And now I don't want to lose the only person who's teaching them how to remember him. We talked. Not for long. But enough. About Carlton as a child, how he used to pronounce spaghetti as paschetti until he was 8. How he once buried my car keys in the backyard because he was mad I wouldn't let him stay up late. Celia laughed, a real, choked laugh. Then she wiped her eyes with a cloth napkin. She told me she'd started therapy. That she hated how she parented in the months after Carlton's death. That she didn't know how to grieve, so she tried to delete the pain, and ended up deleting the people in it. I believed her. Not because she said it perfectly. She didn't. But because she said it without asking to be forgiven. When the check came, I reached for it. No, she said. Let me. It's the least I can do. I let her. Small victories. As we stepped out into the late afternoon sun, she turned to me. Do you think someday we'll be family again? I didn't answer right away. Then I said, family doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to be honest. So keep showing up. And we'll see? She nodded. For once, she didn't try to wrap it in a bow. She just said, thank you for lunch, Diane. And for the first time in years, I heard my name from her mouth with no resentment in it. Just respect. It took me 3 weeks to write the first chapter. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I finally had too much to say. Years of silence make noise strange again. But once the words started flowing, they came like spring after drought. The title of the document read, Things I Never Said Out Loud. And chapter 1 was simple. The day I packed my life into 2 suitcases, I thought I had lost everything. I was wrong. I hadn't lost myself. I just hadn't met her yet. On Friday evening, I printed the first 8 pages and stapled them together. Nothing fancy, no cover, no formatting. Just truth on paper. Emma was doing homework at the table, and Lucas was sketching something that looked like a rocket, ship, lunchbox hybrid on the floor. Would you two mind if I read you something? I asked. They looked up, curious. What kind of something? Lucas asked. A story, I said. About a woman who thought her life ended when she lost her son, but it was actually the day she started over. Emma tilted her head. Is it sad? Yes, I said. But it's also a little brave. I started reading. I didn't change my voice for effect. I didn't rush or dramatize. I just let the story tell itself. About grief. About the night I slept in the back seat of my car. About peanut butter sandwiches and laundromat bathrooms. About the day Carlton's lawyer called, and my hands started to shake not from hunger, but from hope. I glanced up at one point. Emma had stopped coloring. Lucas had put down his pencil. They were still, listening, present. I read until my voice cracked, at the part where I stood outside the school, unsure if they'd even want to come with me. And then I looked up, suddenly shy. That's all I've written so far, I said. Emma spoke first. Can you write more? Lucas nodded. I want to know how it ends. I smiled. I do too. That night, Emma left me a sticky note on my bedroom door. It read, Dear Grandma, you're not just writing a book. You're showing us how to tell the truth. Love, Emma and Lucas, but he was brushing his teeth. I don't know if I'll ever publish it. But for the first time in years, I'm telling a story that isn't someone else's. Not my son's. Not Celia's. Not the one people projected onto me when they saw older woman grieving fragile. No. This story is mine, and I'm reading it out loud. Lucas had a performance at school. It was a small event, a 4th grade music showcase in the multi-purpose room, half filled with parents juggling coffee cups and phone cameras. But to Lucas, it was big. He didn't say much about it in the days before. He just kept practicing the same piece on his recorder, over and over again, in the hallway, on the couch, even while brushing his hair. You nervous? I asked him that morning. He shrugged. A little. Then he paused. Dad used to get nervous too, right? Before he had to talk in front of people. I smiled. Every time. But he always did it anyway. Lucas grinned. Good? Then I guess I can too. That afternoon, Emma helped me pin back my hair and pick out earrings. Because you're a school grandma now, and school grandmas should sparkle just a little. We sat in the third row. Lucas walked onto the stage with the other kids, his shirt tucked in all wrong, his socks mismatched, but his back straight. That posture, proud, nervous, still standing, it was Carlton. Exactly Carlton. They played simple songs, Hot Cross Buns, Ode to Joy, one shaky solo by a girl whose parents clapped too early. And then Lucas stepped forward. His solo was last. He adjusted his recorder, cleared his throat, looked at the floor, then up, right at me, and then he played. It wasn't perfect. He squeaked once, his last note wobbled, but it was bold. He finished strong, and he smiled, that wide, crooked smile that Carlton always made when he was proud of himself but didn't want to say it. I clapped so hard my palms stung. Emma whooped beside me. Celia, sitting quietly in the back row, dabbed her eyes and gave me a nod across the room. After the performance, Lucas found me in the crowd. Was it okay? He asked. I knelt and cupped his face. It was brave, I said. It was you, and it was beautiful. He leaned in, whispered. I think Daddy heard it. We didn't talk about it more. We didn't have to. Sometimes love doesn't need explanation. Sometimes presence is stronger than absence. Carlton hadn't been in the room. But in the song, the smile, the posture of a 10-year-old boy trying his best. He was there anyway. It happened in the cereal aisle. Emma and I were grocery shopping. She was picking out the marshmallow cereal Carlton used to sneak into the cart when Celia wasn't looking. For emergencies. He'd whisper, grinning like a kid himself. We were laughing. Just normal, light, and then she froze. Half a step forward, hand still on the cereal box. Eyes locked ahead. Grandma, she whispered. Do you see him? I followed her gaze. A man, maybe late 30s tall, wearing a navy hoodie and a baseball cap. He had Carlton's build, Carlton's walk. Even the way he tilted his head while reading the label was the same. My stomach dropped. It wasn't him. Of course it wasn't him. But for a second, I understood exactly what she meant. Emma dropped the box. She backed up into me like something had just hit her, and then the tears came. Not loud, not messy. Just a quiet, shaking sob as she buried her face in my coat and whispered, I thought it was Daddy. I really thought it was him. We sat on the bench outside the store for a long time. I held her like she was 6 again, rubbed her back, let her shake. And then I told her what I wish someone had told me when Carlton died. Sweetheart, sometimes our heart wants to see them so badly. Our eyes will play along. That doesn't make you weak or broken. It makes you human. She looked up at me with red eyes and said, I hate that he's not coming back. I nodded. So do I. Will it always hurt like this? No, I said. It won't always feel like drowning. But it will always matter. And that's okay. That night we didn't talk about it again. But when I tucked her in, she said, Grandma. Yes, love. Thank you for not trying to fix it. Grief isn't a problem. It's a shadow. And some days the shadow stands behind you. But some days it walks right beside you quietly. And you just hold hands with it. The letter came home in Lucas's backpack, folded between his math quiz and a newsletter from the PTA, printed in crooked font on recycled paper. Student spotlight. What makes a hero? Each student had written a short paragraph. Some wrote about firefighters, some about astronauts. Lucas wrote about Carlton. My hero is my dad. He got sick but still smiled. He always asked how I was feeling, even when he felt worse. He made weird pancakes and told me crying was just your heart talking. I didn't talk about him for a while. But now I remember him when I laugh. That's how I know he's still around. Lucas Whitmore, age 10. I stared at the page for a long time, sitting at the kitchen table alone. Not because it made me cry, though it did, but because this was the first time Lucas had written the word Dad since the funeral. For months, he called Carlton him. Or, when he was here, he wouldn't say the name, wouldn't name the ache. But now Now, he was telling the world that he came from someone he was proud of. I framed the letter and put it on the shelf. Not in the bedroom, not in a box, in the hallway, where we could walk past it every day, where Carlton would be part of the house again. 3 days later, Celia called. "I don't want to disrupt anything," she said, "but the anniversary is coming, and I'd like to do something for the kids, something that brings their dad back into the room, even for a moment." I hesitated. Then I said, "Come over. But this time, you don't lead, you follow their rhythm." She agreed. No protest, no performance. Just a quiet thank you. Oh, we gathered in the backyard that Sunday. Lucas and Emma had each written letters to Carlton. Not farewell letters, just updates. Emma read hers aloud. "Hi, Daddy, I'm taller now. I can almost reach the shelf you used to keep candy on. I still wear your old sweatshirt even though Grandma says it makes me look like a marshmallow. I love you every day, even on pizza days, even when I cry, especially then." Lucas didn't read his aloud. He folded it up, walked to the garden, and tucked it into the soil beneath the tomato plant he and Carlton had started together before everything changed. Then he whispered, "I'm not mad anymore." Celia cried silently through the whole thing. When the kids went inside, she turned to me. "They talk about him like he's alive," she said. I nodded. "That's because, in the ways that matter, he still is." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small wooden box. It was Carlton's old watch, the one he wore every day for 10 years, scuffed at the edges, still ticking. "I want them to have this," she said. "When they're ready." I took the box in my hands. It was heavier than I remembered, maybe because it was carrying everything she finally chose not to keep for herself. That night, as I watched Emma and Lucas sleep, arms tangled, breathing steady, I realized we had survived the storm. But more importantly, we had rebuilt the house. The book was published in spring. It wasn't in bookstores. Just printed copies, bound in soft matte covers, stacked gently in boxes that smelled like ink and courage. I titled it, "The House We Rebuilt, a Memoir in Small Pieces." I gave one copy to Lucas, one to Emma. I mailed one to Celia. And I kept one on my nightstand, not because I needed to read it, but because it reminded me I had found my voice again. And then I wrote one final letter. Not for the book, not for the world, just for Carlton. "My dear son, you were right about everything. The kids are still funny, still wild, still healing. And so am I. You thought you were leaving us broken. But what you actually left behind was a map. It took me time. I got lost more than once, but I followed it. And now we are not just surviving. We are becoming. You should see Emma climb trees. You should see Lucas laugh when I burn toast. You should see what love can still do when it's quiet and stubborn. We remember you every day, not in silence, but in the noise of life you helped build. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for leaving me the children. Thank you for letting me finish what you started. You are never gone, my boy. Not really. Mom." I folded the letter and tucked it into the garden soil next to the tomato plant, right where Lucas had placed his. Not because I needed to bury it, but because some things don't end, they take root. Grief doesn't vanish. It settles beside us like an old friend, quieter over time, but never gone. Love, I've learned, isn't measured by what we hold on to, but by what we pass forward. Carlton didn't get to finish his story, so he handed me the pen. And I finished it. For him, for the kids, and for the woman I forgot I could be. This wasn't the ending I wanted, but it became the one we needed. And now I want to ask you, have you ever been forced to start over when the world told you were finished? Have you ever rebuilt something? A home, a relationship, a piece of yourself from what others left behind? Tell your story in the comments. Your voice might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And if this story found you at the right time, subscribe to Telling Story with Me. We're not alone, not really.